Hello, today we're going to talk about water resources and watersheds. This is to introduce our next unit about municipal water use, which is going to look at all of the water and resources that we use on a daily basis in our homes, industry, agriculture, that sort of thing. As you go through this video, you can stop, pause, rewind, fast forward any point to take notes, to go back and see something again. You can do it at your own pace. So the first thing that we're going to look at is our water resources, starting with a review of the water cycle. So think way back to the beginning of the year when we talked about the different cycles. Water was a big one. So we have the water cycle taking place throughout the entire biosphere. You have groundwater, surface water, and then our basics of evaporation, getting into the clouds for condensation, coming back down as precipitation. And then we also know we talked about transpiration, which is water coming out of the plants, water being stored through the ground here through infiltration and percolation, and then stored on top of the mountains as ice and snow, or in the polar regions in ice caps. So even though water is a renewable resource, it's still a finite resource because this is the same water that's been here on Earth for millions of years, and it just continues to cycle. So even though we have this cycling going on, we still have to make sure to take care of the water that we have. So our water resources can be surface water or groundwater. The surface water is obviously the water that flows on top of the Earth's surface. This includes our streams, rivers, lakes, and ponds. This is the stuff that we use most often for things like recreation, swimming, boating, fishing. Drinking water comes from mostly surface water. Industry and agriculture use surface water in their processes as well. Because it's on the surface, it's very vulnerable to pollution due to things like runoff, dumping, people leaving things behind. Surface water also includes the water that is trapped in ice caps and in glaciers. Our groundwater then is the water that's below the surface, trapped in the aquifers. Although it can be pumped up and used for different purposes, just like our surface water, groundwater can also be polluted due to contaminants moving through the ground or illegal dumping. We talked about this when we looked at fracking. So here's a quick image just to show you all this. So we have water runoff, can go into our surface water like a flowing body of water, a stream or a river. It can go into a slower moving body of water like a lake or a pond, and then it can even get down into the surface where it is stored in an aquifer as groundwater. Earth is known as the blue planet because it's covered by 70% water. 97% of that is salt water and only 3% is fresh water. So if you take a look at this image here, this is a breakdown of all of the water on the planet. So mostly salt water in the oceans. Just a little bit up here is our fresh water, this blue. And then of this blue, if you follow the line, that's this section here. Most of that water is actually trapped in glaciers and ice caps, so it's very hard to use. Another big chunk of it is as groundwater, and only about 1% is left actually on the surface as freshwater that we can use. So again, just taking this top slice and following the line, you get to this section here. Of that 1%, about 73% is ice and snow. Another 20% can be found in lakes, and then the rest of it is broken down into these smaller bits here. Basically, what we're looking at is we don't have as much water as we think we do. So really only about 1% of the water that's on this planet can be used by humans. So this is a quick look at how often and how much we use water. Remember, a bottle of soda is about 2 liters. So if you were to buy a bottle of Coke or root beer or something from the grocery store, that would be a 2-liter bottle. So that gives you an idea for comparison for our liters here. So our major uses like toilets, showers, laundry, those are a big chunk of our daily use. You can see how much water is being used here. And then a little bit less comes from things like washing dishes, cooking and drinking, brushing our teeth, cleaning, but that's still a very large amount of water being used on a daily basis per person, not per household. Over the years, we've had a lot of history with water shortages. This can come from drought as well as overuse of water, especially with groundwater. If you use the groundwater faster than it can be replenished by the water cycle, then you're going to end up with situations where you won't have enough water to support a population, or less and less water is available as you move downstream. So because of that, we have to look at water conservation. Again, even though water is renewable, there is only a finite amount on this planet. Polluted water is very expensive to clean, and sometimes the pollution is so great that it simply cannot. So conserving water, using less water, is the long-term solution to these problems. A few basic ways we can do that is by turning off faucets, even when you're brushing your teeth or washing your hands when you're not actually using the water, only running full loads in dishwasher and washing machines, watering your plants earlier in the day or later in the evening when the evaporation rate is low, fixing any leaks that you might have, avoiding bottled water because bottled water actually uses a lot of gallons of water just to make that one bottle, and go ahead and invest in things like low flow faucets, shower heads, and toilets. Here's another quick way to look at that. So now we're going to look at watersheds, which is looking at how our water flows through an ecosystem. Watersheds are areas of land that contains all of our streams and rivers that drain into a single larger body of water, such as a river or a lake. They can be broken down into smaller sub-watersheds, and anything that happens on that land is going to impact the overall water quality where it empties into. Streams are classified by their size until they empty into a larger body of water. So sometimes they're called creeks or brooks, and we go in a basic numeric order, first order, second order, third order, that sort of thing. You can pause if you need to write down. So this is a stream diagram. Basically, if you were looking at something from above, they're used to show the size and connection between different bodies of water. We start off with a first order stream. These are your smaller bodies of water that can begin from something like snow melt or an underwater spring coming to the surface. These are your tributaries, so they're feeding into larger bodies of water, and there can be many first order streams throughout a system. As first order streams combine, this is called a confluence, and then they create a larger body of water or a second order stream, so you can see here on the picture as well. Again, there can be multiple second order streams throughout a watershed region. And then we just continue, so as more second order streams come together, you get a third order stream, a larger body of water. There tends to be fewer of these because now you're getting into larger bodies of water flow. And then same idea, so a third order stream can combine with another third, or smaller tributaries can also feed, and that would create what's called a fourth order stream. This will just continue until that final body of water, which is typically the ocean. For an example, the Amazon River, which is the largest river in the world, is a 12th order stream before it empties into the ocean. Pennsylvania has watersheds. We're such a large state, so we have 5 major watersheds, but they're broken into 104 sub-watersheds, seen here. So we have the Great Lakes Basin, which is only 1%, lies in Pennsylvania. This is up towards the Erie area. We have the Ohio River Basin, which is towards Ohio, so western Pennsylvania. It is the second largest and covers about 16,000 square miles of PA. Our watershed is the Susquehanna-Chesapeake Bay watershed. It is the largest. It contains the Susquehanna River, which starts in New York and works its way down through Pennsylvania into the Chesapeake Bay and out to the Atlantic Ocean. Then we have the Potomac Basin. Again, a small one, only about 1% is in Pennsylvania, even though the Potomac River is not. And then the Delaware Basin is the third largest watershed in Pennsylvania, covers about 6,500 square miles, and the tributaries to this basin actually provide much of the drinking water for New York City. So it is important to keep our land use activities. So it is important to be aware of our land use activities so that we know what we're doing and how it's going to impact the water. What you're going to do with this information then is go back onto our assignment page, and you will see a case study called Pennsylvania's Mighty Susquehanna. There's some questions there that you're going to answer, and you can either take a picture of a handwritten answer, or you can type the answers into a Google Doc and upload to Canvas. If you need to go back through anything here, you can rewind and go back to any slides that you may have missed and let me know if you have any questions.